Denzel Washington tells you to be ready, you stay ready. So I stayed ready to keep him having to get ready, you know?
Glynn Turman nabbed his first significant role as an actor back when he was 12 years old. He was in the original Broadway production of A Raisin in the Sun, and now, in his 70s, he gets to merge his love of theater and film in one fell swoop for Netflix's excellent Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. We chat.
I had done the play in New York at in Los Angeles at the Mark Taper Forum. And after the curtain one evening, Mr. Washington, Denzel Washington, came backstage and greeted everyone and so on and so forth. And we were all very in awe of seeing him backstage and glad that he was there. And then he said to me, we've been friends for many years. He pulled me aside and said, hey, we're getting ready to do all of his plays as motion picture. He said, I'm going to do, the next one I do is going to be production of Ma Rainey. Be ready. Well, Denzel Washington tells you to be ready, you stay ready. So I stayed ready to keep him having to get ready, you know? And those things, you know, don't always work out the way they seem to, but in this case, it did work out, and I'm so glad that it did.
Was there anything that you did differently with this character than what you did when you performed him on stage?
Yeah, different director. George is a wonderful, wonderful director. Had a different eye, you know, and we worked on some of the things that seemed to make this character a little more accessible, you know. Some of the choices were more gregarious, you know, a little more fun, you know, for this Toledo, and kind of lent itself to the confines of the set on the screen, you know. So it was a little different in ways that made it a little more fun, I think.
What is it that you think you get from the stage specifically that maybe you don't get from doing TV or film?
Well, it's immediate gratification, you know, and once you're on film, you know, on stage, you're working without a net. We call it working without a net, you know. In other words, if I mess up, no one can yell cut and we do it again until we get it right. You mess up on stage, you better fix it yourself because it's just you and your fellow actors out there doing the thing, you know.
Yeah.
That adds an extra element of danger to it, so to speak, which is always like, oh boy.
You know, we saw you not too long ago in How to Get Away with Murder. What was it like re-teaming with Viola Davis?
Well, what was great was that when we did How to Get Away with Murder, her character, Anizette, was already formed, you know, by the time I got to work with her. So in this case with Ma Rainey, I got to see how the great Viola Davis works on building a character layer by layer by layer by layer through a process, and to see what the outcome of that process was. So that was just wonderful to get a chance to work with such a fine actress and see her work in progress and being a part of that.
And the performance that Chadwick Boseman turned in was just chef's kiss. So good. What was it like working with him on Ma Rainey?
Well, he's just, you know, he's a kind of artist cut from the cloth that I'm familiar with, you know. So it was refreshing to see a young artist that had that same kind of dedication, you know, call it old school dedication. He's from the old school, he's an old soul, you know. And so it was wonderful to be a part of his whole process, you know, and a part of the story that is being told through him. You know, to be included in that story is an honor, you know.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of like a flashing, you know, light, you know, like a shooting star. And so to be a part of that is wonderful.
Yeah, I have to imagine that it's really joyful, I think is probably a good word, to be able to marry the stage with the film in this way. And I know that your first significant role came when you were 12 years old in the original Broadway production of A Raisin in the Sun. Tell me a little bit about those two worlds meeting in this way with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Well, by the time, here's a good thing. Yeah. In waiting for Ma Rainey, all I had to do was survive. Okay, so I survived those 2 years, and here I am.
Yeah.
When Raisin in the Sun went from Broadway to motion picture, I was called into the offices, right? Mm-hmm. And there I was again with the producers and Miss Hansberry and everyone who was going to do the movie. And they said, Glynn, we're going to California for you to do the movie. And I said, oh my God, that's wonderful. My mother and I were in the offices. And then the producer, Phil Rose, said, well, stand up. Let's see if you grew any. And I stood up and the horror came on everyone's faces and everyone went, oh my God. Yeah. I said, what? They said, you grew. I said, oh, good, I grew, great. They said, no, Glenn, that's not great. You're taller than Ruby Dee now. You can't go.
Oh, no.
I'm not in the motion picture of The Raisin in the Sun. I did the Broadway production and introduction. But I stopped growing a long time ago, so I didn't grow too long to do. When Denzel said, we need you, I knew growing wasn't going to be the problem.
Out of everything that you've done over the years, and let's remind people, we're talking about Cooley High, The Wire, A Different World, and so many other classic film and television roles. Is there something that, is there a moment that stands out for you, because you have brought to life so many classic characters over the years that you've been working, when we were allowed to be on the outside and fans would find their way towards you. What roles were sticking for them and what kind of stands out for you?
Well, of course, Cooley High was my signature piece in motion pictures. I was I ended up being a folk hero as a result of my appearance in that film. I can't believe how many people know me from Cooley High still to this day. It's over 40 years later, how many different generations still watch Cooley High. Same with The Different World, those are films and stories that especially our community was weaned on, grew up on, and talk about to this day and pass on to their children to watch, So that makes me feel very, very, very blessed and good. I had another milestone that is part of which comes as a part of my being a part of the Netflix family, is a film that I'm starring in, but alongside of a young lady named Stephanie Turner. But I executive produced the film. So it's my first motion picture that I executive produced called Justine. So you get a chance on Netflix, go see Justine. Pull it up on them. So go to search on your Netflix channel and pull up Justine.
What was that like for you, executive producing, and why did it take you so long to want to get behind the camera?
Oh no, I've been behind the camera for years. I used to direct. I started out directing years and years and years ago. So I used to direct a series called Dynasty that probably none of you have ever heard of.
I not only heard of Dynasty, I used to watch it. I did not know that you directed some episodes of Dynasty, though.
Yes, I directed episodes of Dynasty and A Different World. I directed A Different World and directed the Wayne Brothers and directed all kinds of shows. Yeah, so a lot of directing and stage plays I've directed over the years and produced over the years, and several documentaries that I've produced that are out now.
Yeah. Well, you're going to make us wait with bated breath for whatever else you have coming next. And I can't wait to check it out. It was so
great talking to you today. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Kelley. Thank you. I appreciate it.